what he often says. It appears what is apparent. There's a recognition. He never speaks about an I, and to me that is totally fine. I mean, especially as a teaching, but it gets kind of convoluted, I think, in actual conversations. I don't know why they do that. If it's they don't call like a cup of glass this apparent thingy. So why not use I and talk normally? I don't I don't understand that. Anyways, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Is that how you say it?
So this is all there is. This is the formless in form. This is the empty fullness. It's the boundless energy, which is nothing being everything simultaneously. This is all there is.
That's basically his main shtick, if there's a shtick. And that's I looked at another video with him. What I just showed was from Science and Non-Duality conference, and this is from like a Zoom call he has with students, I guess. Come on. Yeah, here we go.
So this is empty fullness. This is the formless form. This is nothing as everything. It's boundless energy, which also is contracted energy. Contracted energy is boundless energy in a contracted form. So the whole thing is energetic as far as I'm concerned. It's all energy. When two people meet and talk together, there's an exchange of energy.
And yeah, I don't know about this either. I mean, if all concepts, just the way I understand non-duality in its core meaning, like the old traditions speak about it, it is something that goes beyond definitely words. It goes beyond good or bad, right or wrong, up and down. It's neither this nor that, basically. So to even say, it's boundless energy, to kind of, move beyond the appearance of thing, like, I guess that he says that, people or things maybe aren't as real, and then there's energy that is real, but that is also just concepts, of course, energy or energetics or things happening. I imagine he would say that there's apparent energy too, but yeah, it just gets really convoluted, and it's hard. It is hard. It is hard to speak about spirituality, especially when you go into the territory of non-duality, whatever that means. That's up for debate, I guess, because it is in use. I tried to ask ChatGPT about it. Ask him about him or the computer about how many YouTube channels are there with the name non-duality in it, because there seems to be a lot of them, as far as I've seen, at least. Tony Parsons is one of the most famous non-duality YouTube channels or guys, but he doesn't have the name non-duality, so I imagine there's tons and tons and tons of them, and they're all, Jim Newman and Andreas Mueller. I think the chatbot spoke about those two. Some famous Emerson non-duality, Andrew James Newman, Andreas Mueller, and Andreas Mueller and Jim Newman is often said to be sort of copies of Tony Parsons. It's said, I guess, in a derogatory way, but it doesn't need to be negative if it's good, Anyway, so there's a lot of critique against non-duality. There's a lot of critique against neo-advaita, which is often lumped together in a way. I don't think the Tony Parsons would call himself neo-advaita. I'm not sure though, but definitely non-duality. And for me, it's been sort of interesting to understand what the actual critique is. It's sort of subtle in some ways, I think, and it's lumped together with neo-advaita, which makes it harder to untangle exactly what it is. But I asked ChatGPT about that too, and regarding non-duality teachings, it said that philosophical depth is a problem with non-duality, at least to some people. That it just lacks complexity and depth. To me, that is, in what way does that entail a problem? It says that critics may argue that non-duality can be overly abstract and challenging to integrate without a robust philosophical framework. That may be so. I guess it has to be played out or seen in practice or shown. To me, it isn't like a very strong argument. There are tons of, stories of Zen masters just hearing a sutra and having an awakening. And of course, there's a deepening of understanding that usually takes place that people go through koan practice, or they continue meditating or studying even. But yeah, in essence, it's not so much about studying philosophical texts or reading, at least not in the Zen tradition. It's more about just meditating, going deeper into your meditation. So, and then, what is philosophical depth? What does that add? It's just words, depending on how you see it. Yeah. Okay, so interpretational variance. Due to the diverse interpretations across different traditions, there can be confusion and conflicting understanding. It's also one of the critics. Critics argue that this variance can dilute the potency of non-duality teachings. For me too, okay, I would like to see more, what does that mean in practice? And then there's this number 3, practical integration. Non-duality emphasizes the ultimate unit of existence, which can sometimes be difficult to integrate into everyday life. Critics point out that without practical guidance, seekers may struggle to apply these teachings effectively. But to me, this again is like, I don't know. It's not a strong argument for me either. That I would need to maybe I can ask ChatGPT, but to get more meat on those bones, because I can see it to some degree. You have these teachings. It's not about teachings. I guess that's the thing. It's about direct experience. The mystics from the mystical traditions, they aren't speaking about teachings. You have to read this. There are, of course, tons of teachings which you can read, but spiritual awakening and prajna, that type of spiritual understanding, isn't learned through books, and it isn't integrated through books. It can be helpful, of course, with some books. It can be helpful with some teachings, but it's almost like playing an instrument or something. It's about doing the actual practice, the meditation practice, or whatever spiritual practices you do, and then have the actual direct experience of it and understanding and being one with it, one with the flow or whatnot. It's not about applying teachings. That's just heady to me. That's just things you have in your mind, and you think, I'm going to do this and then that. That has almost nothing to do with you can do spirituality in any way you want. You can sit around and read text all day, and if that works for you. but in the end, it's about the here and now. This this moment, this experience right now is: are you awake to it, or are you awake, or are you not? Do you have? Yeah, that's the thing. So neo-advaita. The critique there is so often that there's an oversimplification, which ties into somewhat about the critique of non-duality. Neo-advaita is the new form of Advaita Vedanta, and neo-Advaita is simpler. It's just self-inquiry, or just realize you're awake, and you don't. And the oversimplification here is that that it's too easy. There's no preparatory practices. And no rigorous intellectual study. Again, I guess that's usual in the Advaita Vedanta, that they have a lot of intellectual study. And I'm just unsure how what value that has. I've studied a lot, unfortunately. I've read a lot of books about spirituality. I listened to a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of audiobooks and whatnot for a lot of years. I don't think that did me did too much for me. I think what really did it for me was doing the meditation, really going at it, doing spiritual practices, things that got me into the direct experience of things, rather than reading about stuff and thinking about it. It is, in many ways, not thinking, not going beyond thinking. Isn't that the title of one of Dogen Zenji's, one of the Zen Masters' books? Beyond thinking. We go beyond thinking with asking the question, who am I, or what is this? The mind, the intellectual mind or narrative self doesn't understand it. It kind of, shuts it down in a way. We don't understand it, and what can happen is that we go beyond it, beyond thinking. That is the goal. So rigorous intellectual study. Yeah, again, what do you need that for? Lack of preparatory steps. They have, unlike, I'm going to read here, unlike traditional Advaita Vedanta, which emphasizes sadhana or spiritual practice, that's the meaning of sadhana, ethical conduct, and a qualified guru, Neo-Advaita often suggests that enlightenment is immediately accessible without these steps. Critics argue that this can lead to superficial understanding. I think that's a very, very, very valid point, because, all of these mystical traditions emphasize sadhana or spiritual practice, meditation. I mentioned Zen before. Zen Buddhism means meditation. Buddhism, Zen means meditation, basically. And it's about that. That is the practice. And they have the similar in Sufism and Kabbalah and Christian mysticism. Everyone has spiritual practices similar to meditation, prayer, contemplative prayer, all those things. And those help us get in contact with ourselves, basically, or get out of the mind and into reality, seeing beyond the veil, beyond Maya. And just hearing about it and in a satsang, for most people, isn't enough. You need to do some form of practice in general. Okay. Spiritual bypassing. Neo-Advaita is particularly criticized for promoting spiritual bypassing, where individuals use the teachings to avoid dealing with personal and psychological issues. This critique is more specific to Neo-Advaita than non-duality in general. I think it could be used in maybe not non-duality in general, but as far as the Neo-Advaita teachings, or some of the Neo-Advaita teachers, like Muji, maybe someone else, they share some similarities to some non-duality teachers in that they are a bit, shall we say, well, simplified, that there isn't this focus on practice, on actual practice, more of a focus on, go on a satsang, which can be great and meaningful and helpful for people, but not doing a spiritual practice, or it's just hard to yeah. I don't know if that's the meaning of this though, team. It says use the teachings to avoid dealing with personal psychological issues. So that's maybe it's sort of spiritual bypassing us in saying, there's no one here, there's no doer, there's no yada, yada, yada. There's an appearance of someone having depression and hurting people instead of saying, yeah, I have a problem here. I'm depressed and I'm hurting people and maybe I need to do something about it. So that can be a type of spiritual bypassing, I think. That definitely can occur. All these teachings, understood intellectually, and not being, the actual experience. And even if they are your actual experience, even if you don't have a sense of self anymore, that can too be, maybe not. It can be just dysfunctional in the world. Basically, you can become dysfunctional if you, don't do your chores, you don't take care of your family, you're not living in an ethical way or whatever, and maintain that this is just happening. There's just an appearance of yada yada yada, which may be true from an absolute level, but again, those words are nothing from an absolute level. Nothing is anything. Even the words I'm saying now is just nothing. So saying anything at all, including what I'm saying now, it's just silence. That is the only truth in a way. We can't say it, and saying that is not true either. So when people, use these spiritual ideas to sort of rationalize behavior, especially when it's like these non-dual ideas, I just, I don't really buy it, because it's sort of a contradiction in terms, I would say, at an intellectual level and at a spiritual level, or the essence of those teachings. I mean, I can't really say anything about it. I can't say it's neither right or wrong, or I can say everything about it. It's just going beyond going beyond words when you get to that place. So it's not something I would use necessarily. I just think it's stupid to rationalize behavior referencing that or those kinds of teachings. Commercialization and accessibility. Neo-advaita is often seen as a more commercially driven, with teachings, packages, and sold. So yeah, and there's also cultural appropriation, according to some. So yeah, we're going to look at a teacher that speaks about this. It looks like she has a video from the 1970s, but it says it was uploaded 5 years ago. So hopefully, it doesn't really matter the quality of the video. It's just interesting. Let's see what she has to say. She's speaking about non-duality and neo-advaita, and the title is "What Non-duality or Neo-advaita Teachers Won't Tell You."
And what non-duality and neo-advaita teachers, in my experience, will not tell you, and there's a reason for this, is that in order to get to the point where you are able to distinguish between actor and witness within yourself, to get to that point where you are able to reliably and meaningfully and productively distinguish those two things from each other, let alone choose which one to be in any given situation, in any given moment, you have to meditate, You have to train your
Okay, so she's also critiquing, I took a brief look at this earlier, she's also critiquing the lack of practice, the lack of meditation, and she speaks about the two sort of states or two ways of being, whatever you want to call it, being the actor or being identified with the ego, basically. And yeah, it's that and what was the other? The being in the witness, the witness position that you often, yeah, you train to be in the witness in many ways through doing meditation because you disidentify from all phenomena. You're not generally, identified with your surrounding, but you can do like Sadhguru and say, I'm not this body, not even this mind. And you do that over and over, and you see your thoughts, you see your emotions, you see your sensations, and yeah, you just focus on the breath or whatever it is, and things become objectified in a way. And what is it that sees all those things that can be said to be the witness? It's still a dualistic position, of course, because there's those two states, and ultimate awakening reality is quite literally said to be the dissolution or the witness position, the soul. I think it was even, I saw a comment here that spoke to this. Yeah, there was someone saying that the quote she used earlier, yeah, I didn't listen to it, was wrong, but this person writes, Moon saw that I've been a constant witness for 13 years, but beyond that is just being, neither the actor nor the witness, but just pure existence without being anything in particular and having no location in time or space. Being the non-actor is just a phase you go through, and beyond that, awareness locates itself everywhere as infinity. And yet, this is what a lot of non-dual teachers do not speak of. The personality is still there, and you are as ordinary as anyone else, but the spiritual part of you remains apart from all your actions. And so there is no real duality. Okay. Yeah, so it speaks to this somewhat that being identified as either the actor or non-actor in a way, or being identified with being a witness. I'm just a witness. I'm not doing. I'm not the doer. Is can be seen as a phase, or it can be seen as a sort of state, or some ending up on somewhere on an awakening continuum. But again, it's according to most mystics anyway, there's something beyond the witness position for sure, which is a sort of non-duality position, not necessarily the non-duality that everyone is speaking about, but saying I am the witness is still dualistic because there's a witness and something witnessed, of course. Okay, let's hear if she has something more to say.
Brain. You have to change how your brain works through meditation. Daily meditation over whatever period of time.
Okay, so yeah, for sure, meditation does change the brain. I mean, and there's a strong correlation between people doing spiritual practice, meditating and such, and having the experience of, either the witness or a sort of non-dual experience or whatnot, having these awakening experiences, either temporary openings or actual permanent shifts. That's the reason why all these mystical traditions speak about doing spiritual practice or sadhana. It's not, just random. It is because it works. And there's a strong correlation between doing it and having those experiences. So when the teachers like Tony Parsons says that, I think that's a valid critique, and I think it's really important too that people looking at Tony Parsons or Jim Newman or whatever, I'm not sure exactly what they say about meditation, but many teachers who have the awakening of realizing being or realizing just they are obviously gone through a spiritual awakening. So they are, I mean, I wouldn't say that doesn't make you a legitimate teacher, but they're speaking from their own experience. They are not, like charlatans, I think. They are having, they are having or have had an authentic opening or awakening that they are speaking from, so to speak. They are describing their own experience of existence. How did I get into that? Yeah, but the meditation may have played a part in it or not, but many of them tend to de-emphasize meditation afterwards, at least at the outset of it. I remember even Adyashanti saying that you don't really need to meditate. You don't need to have your back straight. You can sit in in a slumped over position and just sort of realize that everything's one and you're all good. And maybe it worked for some, but later on, after some more years had passed, he changed his teaching style, and he started to emphasize meditation again. And I saw a video, I remember, many years after he first had his kind of non-duality teaching style with that you don't need not that much practice. It was basically, sitting straight with your back and your hands in a mudra position and doing meditation regularly, like every day, was his recommendation. Found that to be interesting. And of course, the Zen tradition speaks to this. I think there's still truth, I mean, to definitely for people who go through spiritual awakenings can many times stop meditating because they don't feel the need for it. Good or bad, I don't know. I think they're many times following their intuition, which can be good or bad thing. Who knows? Of course, in the Zen tradition and those types of most mystical tradition that tend to emphasize that to just continue practice, just as before, chop wood, carry water before awakening and do it afterwards, as in, do the same things you did before as after, and it's not really any difference. But definitely don't stop meditating because you had a spiritual awakening. Yeah. I wouldn't want to tell you what to do, but to totally omit spiritual practices, and I hope just, listening to Tony Parsons on YouTube saying that everything's one will get you the same experience as he's having is, that's a long shot, basically. you, as I said, it's not like a causality thing, but there are actual brain changes happening, like she says this off the green channel, that we can see the differences happening inside the brain where people are meditating and people who have meditated over long periods of time. And I mean, not at one stretch, even if that can be the case too, but I mean, like over many, many years. So they have, 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours. You don't need that much, perhaps, but even these teachers that say that you don't need to do anything, most of them have done a lot of sadhana, a lot of spiritual practice, a lot of meditation, a lot of chanting, a lot of mantra singing, a lot of listening to spiritual teachers. And and just because there's one here or there who haven't, it's almost like someone having smoked their whole life and lived to be long, or lived a long life anyway. That's it's just statistics, of course, that in general people do die quicker when they smoke, and in general people do have have awakenings if they engage in spiritual practice, and you may be, unusual in that way. not fit into to that statistic, but I wouldn't take the chance. Definitely not. Okay, so I think that's one of the best critiques, if that's a recurring critique. The fact that it de-emphasizes or neo-advaita and non-duality teachings. They kind of de-emphasize meditation. They're just talking, you just need to listen. You just need a understanding, kind of. And it can be in that way superficial, which is both, I guess, pointing out instructions, in Mahamudra, Tibetan Mahamudra, or Zen or whatever, they have things called pointing out instructions, where you get pointed out the nature of reality, which can be really helpful, and you can get a sense of it. You just, it becomes clear and you see it. But that is usually not enough. You need to do practice. You need to retrain your awareness. You need to retrain your brain, your mind, to have that become a sort of reality in your day-to-day life. It usually doesn't stick from just listening to a satsang at once. There are accounts of that being the case, but that is usually, maybe triggers someone who has done sadhana for years and years, and they hear something. But that is not that you can, just hear the same thing and have that same experience. Yeah. So that is the best critique I've seen against neo-advaita, and as well as non-duality. I'm reading here too on Wikipedia about the criticisms of neo-advaita. It says that it's been called a controversial movement, with quotes, and has been criticized for its emphasis on insight alone, which we were just talking about, omitting the preparatory practices. I'm not sure exactly what I mean, and I'm not going to search for it either, but I don't know what is preparatory practices is that they always speak about. Is it sadhana? Maybe. It has also been criticized for its reference to a lineage of Ramana Maharshi. Yeah, so there's a lot of people speaking about Ramana Maharshi, and he didn't have a lineage. Yeah, whereas Ramana never claimed to have disciples and never appointed any successors. More critique here, that some critics say that seeing through the illusion of ego is the main point of neo-advaita, and this does not suffice. According to Kaplan, the enlightenment experiences induced by these teachers and their satsangs are considered to be superficial. I think, maybe there are, but I would imagine that they are more like pointing out instructions, and they are beneficial. It's just not standalone tool for enlightenment, basically, not in general anyway, that you need, again, some form of spiritual practice, but you can definitely, I think at least, supplement with these satsangs if that feels, meaningful for you. Just going to them, just listening to things like this though, I don't think it works for most people. Practice is necessary is another topic here, which we touched for sure. According to Dennis Waite, neo-advaita claims to remove ignorance, but does not offer help to remove ignorance. Okay, so it claims to, but doesn't do it. According to Kaplan, traditional Advaita Vedanta takes years of practice, which is quite different from the neo-Advaita claims. Classical Advaita Vedanta uses the fourfold discipline, sadhana, Katustaya, I don't know what it is, to train students to attain moksha, which is liberation. Years of committed practice is needed to sever or destroy the occlusion, the so-called vasanas, like samskaras, bodily sheaths and vriddhis, those are like obscurations, and granthi, or not forming an identification between self and mind, and prepare the mind for insight into non-duality. After awakening, post-awakening sadhana or post-satori practice is necessary. All of the great ones had a post-awakening sadhana, including Ramana Maharshi spent many years sitting alone in samadhi before he ever accepted his first student. After realization, further practice is necessary to ripen the fruit, as stated by the Nisargadatta Maharaj. The fruit falls suddenly, he says, but the ripening takes time. Yeah. So, yeah, basically the same critique, which I again think is the most valid one about practice. Both, you don't need to call it preparatory practices, because it is the practice. Meditation, going through, doing the meditation, doing the sitting, doing the prayer, whatever it is that you do, you focus on. Yeah, if we want to speak about Ramana again, you focus on who am I, over and over and over. You sit and focus on who am I, and ask that question for years. That is usually needed for an authentic awakening. And usually, even if you had a sort of an opening, temporary, you need to keep doing it. And even after, like they say, a satori, like a big awakening that is ongoing afterwards, it's stable. You still do sadhana, you still do these practices. So de-emphasizing practice, I think it's, that's, I hope we agree on that one. But yeah, it can still be helpful. And if you're drawn to the neo-advaita or non-duality, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily at all. It's just that it can be, in practice, not a good thing, because they de-emphasize practice. But as long as you keep doing some form of sadhana and, look at those things that actually, the things that really move the needle in when it comes to, changing your brain, or however you want to look at what it is that is happening when people go through an awakening or change their perception. You need practice to do that. It won't happen listening to Tony Parsons alone. Okay, so that's all I had about non-duality today. Thank you, and I see you in the future.